Okay, y'all, you remember that collab we did with Daisy where we made those beautiful shirts that say allies of all size and we helped fund Daisy's expansion to larger sizes? Just wanted to remind you that those shirts are still for sale and you can use code SAF to get 10% off not only that shirt, but any Daisy brand shirt. All of those proceeds, we get a little cut if you use our code, and then all of the proceeds on Daisy's side go to expanding their sizes, which is really cool. If you need a refresher on them, then just listen back to our fashion ups. All right, buy that shirt. I'm Sophie.
I'm April.
And this is She's All Fat, the podcast for body positivity, radical self-love, and chill vibes only. This week, we'll discuss queer bodies, soft physiques, and fat queer influencers. If you haven't guessed, I'm talking to Tobin, Lowe, and Kathy too from Nancy. April, are you jealous or wet?
Sorry, I blacked out.
I knew it.
Calling body posse sisters, hush those diet culture whispers. We like your body big or small, rolls and ripples all for all. Sit on down, it's time to chat. She's all fat.
Okay, sending them in from her apartment 2 miles southwest of me. April's Obsessions.
What is up, everyone? It's April, and I'm here with, you guessed it, a list of things I very much enjoy, aka my obsessions. Let's begin, shall we? My first obsession is Beyonce's Spirit video. If you haven't seen it, you need to go to YouTube right now, type in Spirit, and just go ahead and be taken away. If you don't know, this is a part of The Gift, which is Beyonce's sort of like concept album about the Lion King, but it's not the soundtrack. It's featuring a bunch of like African artists, so like everyone my mom is obsessed with, plus Beyonce, plus Pharrell for some reason, and then intercut with like clips from the Lion King. Like, it doesn't make sense, but it is the greatest thing I've ever heard in my freaking life. Like, it's like as if the album is made for me specifically, like as a West African Beyonce stan. So Spirit is like the first, I hope, of many music videos from this like concept album situation. Blue Ivy's in it. She's also heavily featured on the album. She's coming for Beyonce's throne, and I couldn't be more excited. The Spirit video honestly just took me away. Like, it blew me away because it's just so striking. Like, it's almost like not what you think it would be, because Beyonce keeps saying the album is like a love letter to Africa, a love letter to Africa, but it's like, it's not just African clothing and Beyonce dancing in it. Like, it's not like such a literal interpretation. It's more like a variety of skin tones. Like, it's about like skin tones, like hair texture, and just like the variety. Like, there's so many different types of people shown in it, and there's so many different types of like costumes. Like, it's such a like diverse representation of the album, and not the classic just like Beyonce in a kente cloth. Like, it's not, you would think that, but it's like she's past that. Like, we did that on Grown Woman, we're going somewhere else now. You know what I mean? And I'm so obsessed with it. I've watched it like a million times. We watched it at work, and everyone was like, I want Lemonade Beyonce back. Like, she's just doing this to get her Oscar. Listen, of course she's doing this to get her Oscar. And guess what we're doing? We're giving Beyonce a fucking Oscar. And I don't want to hear about it. I like any Beyonce that she's willing to give us. Period. Right now on Twitter, when I'm recording this, a lot of people are talking about how the album sales aren't like normal Beyonce sales numbers, like they're lower. And it's like, yeah, this is niche. People don't give a fuck about Africa. Like, hello? It's the same thing that I'm always talking about, which is like nobody actually thinks about Africa, and they assume that an African Beyonce album isn't for them. But I would just say, like, that's ridiculous. And also, I think it's fine that it doesn't do the same Beyonce numbers, because she's doing a project that clearly she cares so much about, and it means so much to so many people. And if that's not your like twerking, getting ready to the club music, like, go put on Sorry by Beyonce. Like, you have your Beyonce music, and she did something that's specifically for me, and I appreciate it, and it is what it is. That is that On that, my next obsession is this tragic viral video going around, the Beat Shazam video. Okay, so apparently there's a game show hosted by Jamie Foxx where it's like, the Shazam app where you can hold it up when you hear like a song at Forever 21 and they tell you which Swedish pop star song it is. So it's that, but in a game show. So they like play a clip and then you're supposed to guess it before Shazam does, I think. I think that's the game. Again, I'm not clear on it, and that's beside the point. So there's this clip going around of this guy who, he's on this show. He's like super excited. There's a lot of money on the line. They play the song How to Save a Life, which if you've seen any episode of Grey's Anatomy, you know what that song is. They play like a short clip from it, and he's like, "Is it How to Save the Life, Jamie?" And then they show it, and it's like, "How to Save a Life." And then what happens after that in the clip, I truly will not tell you because I don't want to take away the experience of watching this clip. So go ahead and watch the Beat the Shazam viral video, How to Save a Life. Go ahead and Google it, or maybe it'll be in the show notes, and then just experience it, and then just know that I had the same reaction, and yes, I am ashamed, and yes, I did cackle. So that's that. So that is my obsessions. Back to you, Soph.
Okay. My obsessions this week. I'm trying a new face oil. It's called Lesse, Lesse. It says it's turmeric and sea minerals. So far, so good. I'll let you know. Also, I know they are a sponsor of ours. They are not paying for this mention. Usually if there is a mention of a sponsor in an obsessions, it'll be like, okay, this is a paid mention. We like disclose that. So this is not a paid mention, but I'm just like really glad that we started working with the balm cleanser company called Banila. Their stuff is so gentle and I'm really enjoying it for summer when I'm like super, super sweaty and gross. I have a bunch of Neutrogena face wipes on hand to take off makeup, and I also use the Glossier Milky Jelly to take off makeup, but I haven't been wearing a lot of makeup this summer because it's just too hot. And so when I don't wear makeup, the Neutrogena wipes can feel a little bit harsh for me. I know that that's probably just because I have sensitive skin, but I'm really enjoying the Banila balm for the days when I haven't worn any makeup, but I need to like wash sweat and stuff, sunscreen off my face. Always wear your sunscreen because it's just like very gentle. It feels good. My face already feels super irritated from being in the sun and like being sweaty. And that's my preferred summer cleanser right now. I also like the Clinique Facial Balm, like take off the day or something like that. But the Banila one's a little bit, to me, it's like it doesn't burn my eyes in the same way that the Clinique one does. Like they're kind of similar in form. Banila one's just nice. I'm enjoying it a lot. Let's see, what else? I picked up a perfume at Madewell this weekend. I'm liking it a lot. They have like 4 new perfumes that they just put out. I normally just wear Glossier YOU, and that's still my favorite, even though I have other perfumes on my bedside table. My mom had a collection of perfume bottles, like vintage perfume bottles, and I have those there. Art ones, not like brand ones, if that makes sense. What I really wish is that I could wear citrusy perfumes, but they curdle on my skin. I don't know why. It's like something with my personal musk, I guess. But the new ones from Madewell smell really nice. I got the blue one, whichever one that is, and it smells pretty good. It doesn't last as long as Glossier YOU, which like really settles out well on my skin, but I'm enjoying it as like an alternate. And finally, I'm recommending all my friends and family in Southern California to please get some museum wax to put your valuables onto the shelves after those quakes that we had. I wasn't here for them, but I have like some milk glass that my mom and I collected when I was younger, and now I'm like busy sticking all of it down because I should have done that before, but I just kind of avoided the topic, as most people do when faced with scary things. So Home Depot is literally back ordered on it, but you can get it a bunch of other places. Like I think Target has it too. I recommend getting some museum putty. It's like you just go in and ask for it. It's like sticky. It feels like clay. It's like clay basically. And you just put a little dab on the bottom of whatever thing you want to keep safe. And then you stick the other side of it onto the shelf. And it does come off if you want to move it or whatever. It's not like permanent, but it keeps it from knocking over when we have another quake, because that quake was not on the San Andreas fault. So the big one's still coming. Obsessed with global chaos. Okay, so speaking of sponsored obsessions, this week we do have a sponsored obsession. As you know, we only do these when it's something that I actually like, because I, in no world would ever like agree to talk for 2 minutes contemporaneously about something that I don't actually like. I make sure that all of our brands and products that we advertise for on this pod are something that either I personally love or I think would be like something that the family would really find use for or really like. And this happens to be something that I personally really love. Everyone knows I am a beauty jewelry junkie, and I've been so excited to work with a couple of the jewelry brands that we've worked with on the pod. Here is one that I think y'all are going to be really excited about. I've worn my earrings from them a couple times in my Instagram stories and gotten like a bunch of questions. And I'm always like, hey, just wait till we have our code. They're so cute. Okay, so we're working with Ana Luisa. Their saying is jewelry for womankind, which means that they come from the high fashion world, but they want to bring that high quality to people at a more affordable price. So they offer earrings, rings, necklaces, bracelets, and anklets, which I'm going to get an anklet. I think anklets are coming back. Anklets are back. I never wore anklets because I could never find one that like fit around my thick ankle. I will link in the show notes some of the ones that I'm really excited about. The pearl earrings that I got, they're like little cute pearl drops with like gold part at the top. I think they're really pretty. I think they're pretty classic looking, but like pearl earrings came back in a big way this year. In 5 years, I might put them in the back of my jewelry case, but I think I won't be throwing them away or like trying to reuse the beads from them like I do other, you know what I mean, like cheapish jewelry. And I also won't be too afraid to wear it because it's like too fancy, which I also have made the mistake of doing with nice jewelry. So they also have a Zodiac collection, which you know I love. They've got little gold hoop earrings with Zodiac images, and they're all in stock, but the Scorpio ones are in low stock, which is a clear attack on me. So Ana Luisa, please fix that. They also have stacking rings. I also like that you can easily add onto your order a chain extender. I ordered like a chain extender on Amazon a while ago. I don't use it that much because it's too heavy for most necklaces. So I like that Ana Luisa allows you to like order one through them so that it's like gonna go with the necklace that you order it with. And I also really like that Ana Luisa uses 100% recycled gold. Apparently, if you look into jewelry stuff, turns out, you know, I mean, everyone knows about blood diamonds, but apparently like gold mining, it takes 20 tons of mining to produce a single ring of gold. And that's like, I guess why a lot of brands won't tell you where their gold comes from. So I think it's really cool that Ana Luisa uses only recycled gold. Okay, so we have a code for you. Our discount code is SAF10. You get $10 off your order. And you can also go to the link, which is www.analuisa.com/SAF. So if you want to match me, I'm going to link my really cute art teacher earrings and my pearl earrings and the anklets that I want to get and the extender in the show notes. So if you want to match me, go to analuisa.com/SAF or use discount code SAF10 for $10 off your whole order. I think their stuff's really cute. It's like a very different vibe from the other jewelry companies we've worked with, and I really like it. Okay, honestly, I've gone on much longer about this than we were paid to talk about because I actually like this stuff. So buy some Ana Luisa jewelry, support the pod, get yourself some cute stuff. That's the excuse you can use. analuisa.com/SAF. Okay, moving on. Okay, moving on to our Apple Podcast review shoutouts. Thank you so much to the following people for giving us a review on Apple Podcasts. One day we will be on New and Noteworthy, one day, and that day I will eat my hat, whatever that saying means. Thank you so much to the following people: softball_04, Mary Beth M, Daw 5868, K8 or Kate Veranos, True Taurus 44, and JJ Loves Broadway. Good for you, JJ. Moving on to our Patreon shout out. Thank you so much to the following people who literally make this podcast possible. Obviously, we love our sponsors as well, but our patrons are really the ones who keep the lights on here. We use the Patreon money to pay Maria and Lynn, and that's how we make the podcast. So thank you so much to Amanda Gleason, Caitlin Bagley, who is the Carleton alum who was in the Team I Love Bread minisode last week. Thank you, Caitlin. E. Ecker, Elaine Hancock, Beth Cooper, and Crystal E. Thank y'all so much. You are our bosses or our shareholders. Technically, should we be on a shareholder call? All right, moving on to correction/news. I'm going to throw it over to Lynn for a little correction from last week's episode. Here we go, Lynn.
Hey family, it's me, Lynn again, coming at you with some corrections from last week's episode. Correction number 1. I am very embarrassed to admit that when I threw down that academic term, metrosexuality or like metrosexuality, not what I meant to say. I did mean Metronormativity, which is the correct terminology for like the idea that urban spaces are more like accepting and like safer places to be, specifically like for queer people, but I was applying that outside of just queerness, and that is a term coined by Jack Halberstam, who writes a lot on this, so I'll link some articles to that. There's also an article that like just came out, maybe someone was listening to the episode, about like Queer Eye and like anti like rural sentiment or whatever, so I'm gonna link that too. And then my correction number 2, also embarrassing, in my obsessions, I was really excited about the new King Princess album, which I was like, oh, it's coming out tomorrow, after like months of it like confusingly not coming out, and then it turns out that if I had read a little bit further into this like misleading Instagram post that King Princess posted, then I would have known that actually it was not the album, just another single, which is good. It's called Profit. I figured that the album was called Profit. Listen, I'm not mad about it, but I do love to be tricked by a queer icon. So thank you, King Princess. Sorry, those are my corrections. Back to Sophie.
Okay, thank you for that, Lynn. Call for submissions. Please send us your brief thoughts on this season and suggestions for next season. We welcome any kind of feedback. Would love it to be, kindly worded. Remember, we're people over here. I'm the one reading the inbox, but I would love to hear anything you want to hear next season, people you want us to interview, topics you want us to handle. I've heard from a lot of people they want us to do like religion and weight, which has been literally on the list since day one, but I have avoided it because it's a huge topic. So maybe we'll have to break that down in a few episodes next season. Could be cool. Send us your thoughts. Okay, as always, we got to give a shout out to our Patreon Facebook group, which is an amazing, amazing community. Half the time when people DM me on Instagram and ask me like tough questions that I don't know how to answer, I just tell them to join the Facebook group because there's always people there who have an answer. There's librarians there. There's lawyers there. There's consultants of all kinds there. There's moms there. There's people helping each other out in all kinds of ways, and it's great to see. So a few weeks ago, I went live on our group with my little sister, Isabel. We talked about black cats. We talked about plus size swimwear from Target. We talked about her cool purple hair. And I go live in there every month. And sometimes people hang out with me and sometimes they don't. But the point of the group is I am available to those patrons because they are paying for that access and I'm there for you. So if you want more FaceTime with me, if you're not sick of me, join the Patreon Facebook group because I'm in there. All right. Also got to plug our extra segment for Team I Love Bread. This week we did a little special segment with Kathy and Tobin from Nancy, who we're interviewing in the meat of it. Here's a little clip from that now.
My favorite joke, which is it's such a dad joke, but I make it every single time you come into the office. Oh, Kathy comes in and goes, "Oh God, she pooped in the bedroom again," and I'm like, God. "Your girlfriend?"
Oh my God.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into the meat of it.
meat of it.
This week in the meat of it, we are talking to two of my fellow podcast hosts who I'm so proud to call friends, Kathy and Tobin from the podcast Nancy. If you don't already know, Nancy is an amazing podcast all about the queer experience and different queer stories. They're reported and they do stories and they are just so thoughtful and fun and good. I listened to Nancy for quite a while before getting the chance to actually meet with them. April and I cold emailed them, I think, and we were just like, hey, we love you. And since then, now we're friends, and that's one of the cool things about this job. Kathy and Tobin have done so much for me to help normalize my experience of being bi and queer, and just by showing lots of different kinds of stories as they explore the queer experience. And I love how personal their stories are, and also how kind of gentle and open they are for all kinds of different experiences. So in case you haven't heard Nancy before, we've put together a little mishmash here of clips from some episodes of Nancy, so you get a little intro to what Nancy's like. We've linked all the episodes that these clips are from in the show notes, and I hope you'll go over and subscribe to Nancy if you haven't already, and follow Kathy and Tobin on Twitter and wherever else, and join me in standing them. Okay, here are some clips from Nancy.
Cynthia was preparing to give a sermon, and she was nervous, which might seem odd for someone who had been a pastor for 25 years. But this sermon was different.
Will I wind up taking a less prestigious position or a worse paid position in order to be in a place with a queer community?
And do you feel frustrated that you might ultimately have to choose between your career and having a sense of community like you want?
I guess so. I hadn't even thought about it. I just accepted it as how things were. Is that sad?
Which I acknowledge is a privilege I hold, being someone assigned female at birth who can say, okay, it's safer actually for me to say she or her now.
Yeah.
I'm moving away from that more and more.
Okay.
But it is something that happens subconsciously, where I'll be talking about myself and I'll say she or her, and then I go, I mean, them, me. So I would just say that, if I beat myself up every time I did that to myself,
yeah,
I mean, it just wouldn't be helpful. And so I would advise the same to anyone who misgender someone by accident. You're making a mistake that is unintentional. And so I don't think there's a reason to beat yourself up. If you found yourself doing it on purpose over and over again, then I might say, you need to check yourself, and why you're doing that, actually.
Yeah. Fellow queer Asian Bo and Yang, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
This is so exciting.
This is huge. Tobin was greeting me, and I said this is a big moment in queer Asian media history.
When we started this interview, wherever Sandra is, she stopped and went, something's happening.
Something's happening. Sandra, the wind shifted.
Work and check their spelling and write in their best handwriting. And, we spent a few days on those letters.
I think the Supreme Court should say that you're able to use the boys' bathroom. Because it is unfair that trans people are being treated unfairly, and it needs to stop. How do you feel about fighting for your rights? I think you should keep fighting for your rights.
Sounds good, right? It is good. So now we'll move on to my interview, my chat with Kathy and Tobin about queer bodies. Here we go. I am here on the phone with two amazing other podcast hosts, Kathy and Tobin of the amazing podcast Nancy. Would you guys, even though you don't need an introduction, would you please introduce yourselves?
I would argue we need an introduction out of a very tiny corner of Brooklyn.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Kathy, do you want to go first?
Sure. I am Kathy, too, and I co-host this little thing called Nancy with Tobin Lowe. Go, Tobin.
And I am Tobin Lowe, and I co-host Nancy with Kathy.
And you guys are our podcast friends. So today we wanted to talk about something that we've wanted to do an episode about for a while. The topic of our episode today is, what does a queer body look like? What is a queer body? What does that mean? And from, my perspective, I'm going to be adding in some stuff about being fat and being a cis woman. Those are my identities. I'm white, and I want to know if you guys are comfortable adding it kind of a description of your bodies for us all to start with.
Totally.
Sure. Do we just jump right in and describe our bodies?
Do it.
So I would say that I am an Asian person, East Asian person, female presenting, woman identifying, and wait, what are the other physical traits that
Just what do you let's explore it. What do you like to wear? How would you describe your style?
Oh my God. What's my style, Tobin? Because Tobin dresses me sometimes.
I would say that your style is sort of masculine of center.
Oh, yes.
Tends to be.
Yes.
You tend to wear things that sort of angle towards the sort of masculine presenting, whatever that means. But, the sort of the leather jackets and the
t-shirts,
button-down
t-shirt
shirts,
and jeans.
Sort of thing.
That's where my comfort lies in. I really enjoy a comfy t-shirt and some comfy jeans.
Love that.
And comfy shoes. Comfort overall.
Love that.
I definitely think that I have a soft physique that I'm trying to make less soft. Because I like to feel stronger.
Sure. How about you, Tobin? Why don't you give it a go?
Okay, so I'm Chinese American, and I think it's an interesting moment to ask me to describe my body because it's something I've talked about on our show before, sort of having body issues as a gay man and being in gay male culture. So I think had you asked me this question a year ago, I would have said, I'm chubby, or I'm, I might have even used the word fat. And I'm not just sucking up here, but truly listening to your podcast. So yeah, I'm like, I absolutely have straight size privilege, and I can buy things in a store, and so all of those sort of things. So I'm sort of doing some reframing for myself about the influences on how I've seen my body over time, and the words that I use. So now I would describe myself as just sort of a medium build, medium to small-ish build, but with broad shoulders. I frequently knock things over with my body because I don't think I'm familiar with actually the dimensions.
Same.
Yeah, so I guess that's how I would describe my body. And I also have a little bit of that, it fluctuates over time as I have tried to go on different diets and tried out different workout regimens and that sort of thing. So I've done a little bit of the yo-yoing.
Okay, great. And how do you describe your style, would you say? The clothes that are often on your body?
I think that for a while I was very boring J. Crew. So I used to walk into a J. Crew and look at a mannequin and be like, that, head to toe. And now I am going more towards if Blossom moved to New York.
Oh, my God.
I think is more.
Blossom moved to New York.
Yeah.
I love that.
Lots of overalls. I love a one-piece jumpsuit kind of thing. That's sort of, and floral prints.
Oh my God.
That seems to be the direction I'm going in.
That's incredible. I love that vibe. That's an incredible fashion vibe. Oh my God. Okay, and then people who listen maybe know what I look like, but I'll just play it anyways. I am white. I am a cis woman, and I am definitely female presenting. I am 5'6", 5'5", 5'6", which I thought was average height, but I think it actually like quote unquote average height in the US is like 5'3" is what I found out when I was recording our tall.
True?
Yeah, isn't that wild? When I was recording
I thought I was average height.
I know.
5'5".
Everyone, I had no idea. I was like, what? Yeah, Ann Friedman was like, nope, I know. I was like, oh shit, okay. I know. So, and I'm fat. I've been different kinds of fat, but right now I would say I'm like probably mid-fat, which is like I have to buy all my clothes like at plus size stores, but I don't face the same barriers as people who are super fat, which is like often like fat is more of a description of like, for me, it's more description of how I have to move through the world than it is really, you know, a description of my body. Because everybody has fat. Like that's what Kathy was saying, right? You know, you're like, I've got fat on my body, but it's more like, okay, so right now, the body that I'm in, sometimes I have to like, I can't fit in all booths in restaurants. I have to like watch for tables that can move, and I have to like get a seatbelt extender and a plane. But I don't face it in every situation. It's just I still get nervous and have to call ahead to different like theater venues and stuff. Style wise, like we just did a couple episodes about personal style, and when I was doing our Patreon extra about it, I was like, okay, I think really the truth is that I feel like when I'm doing outfits, I often think of them as vibes, like costumes that I'm putting on. So I have like several different vibes that I cycle through. So right now, my favorite vibes / costumes that I've been putting on are like athleisure LA cool girl. I've been putting on a lot of
Love it. Love it.
Bike shorts outfits. Those have been fun. And then also a lot of times I go for like kind of good witch, which is like a lot of black and accessories.
I love that so much.
That's great.
And then my third most comfortable one the last year is queer toddler, which is like a lot of
What is
boxy.
a queer toddler?
Yes.
It's like a lot of shorteralls with like boxy button-ups, you know?
You know what? I'm gonna guess that it's not far off from Blossom Move to the City.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I think it's pretty close. Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to ask, how was that experience for you guys of just describing your bodies? Kathy, was it hard or easy for you?
I think it was hard in that I don't feel like I have like the words to say what I want to say, besides like what I've seen or read in like magazines and stuff.
Yeah.
So that made it difficult for me to say what I'm trying to say.
Sure. What about you, Tobin?
It's an interesting exercise because I think as a queer person, as a gay man, there's sort of like this moving target quality about it, which is like, depending on the lens that I'm putting on to look at my own body, like it shifts how I feel about it, right? So like there is a culture, I feel, amongst gay men of the ideal standard being this sort of like hyper muscled, hyper skinny, hyper, in shape, sort of insta-gay look. And then there's the other lens where, you take into account how all bodies are and the much wider spectrum. And on that spectrum, I have to appreciate that I'm much more on the side of having a lot of privilege and having a lot of, being an able-bodied person who can buy clothes in any store, basically.
Yeah.
That there's a lot of privilege to that. So, like, this is all to say that, like, you asking me to describe my body, I'm like, from what perspective?
Yeah.
It feels hard to locate exactly how I feel about it, depending on the perspective from which someone is asking.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, I think that's why having familiarity with more terms is always helpful. I feel like how you feel about your body is very different from more functional descriptions, where it's like, okay, what are the kind of stats that are useful to like communicate how you actually take up space in the world? And then that's a different conversation than how do you feel about yourself and how do you walk around and how do you present? You know what I mean? That's one of the reasons why I'm curious about talking about what a queer body means, because for me, finding body positivity and going through actually like feeling more embodied in myself, like not feeling like I was trying to escape my physical body all the time, was a huge step in my realizing that I was queer, that I was bi, because it wasn't until I was more settled in myself and like, okay, well, instead of spending I spent the first 23 years of my life being like, one day I'll be in a different body, so this one I don't need to pay attention to that much, basically. And then once I was like, okay, I wonder what it would be like if I just sit in this one for a bit, I started finding out all these other things about myself, and not in a and then I felt lust for women way, but it took, then it took sitting in myself to be like, oh, I can recognize these feelings that are happening that are I didn't see them or understand them. I didn't really mentalize them until I was more comfortable with my physical self. Do either of you relate to that? Does that make sense to you?
I relate to that so hard because I talked about this a lot with my therapist for a while, about how growing up, even in moments where I fully acknowledged that I was gay, and then I could say that sort of out loud to myself, the aesthetics of what that meant were so heavily associated with a queer as folk aesthetic, or the bodies of, Will Truman or Jack on Will and Grace, which are white, thin bodies, that I still felt like I wasn't actually a quote-unquote real gay man because I didn't have that aesthetic. And so untying my queerness from a certain type of body or from a certain type of presentation, that took a lot of time to really connect the dots on oh, I don't feel like I count as a queer person because of the way I think of what it means to look gay or what it means to look like a gay man.
Yeah.
That took a ton of work. And I, still working on it.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I felt when I found Nicolette Mason, when I was like, oh, you can be fat and queer and femme. I had thought before, oh, no, I know that I'm, I really tied queerness for women with, more mask presentation. And I was like, I know that doesn't feel like me. So that must not be. And also, a lot of the representation I saw of more femme queer women, they were all thin and white, and I'm white, but I'm not thin. And so I was like, oh, well, I don't fit in this category. And I don't think I would have said it like that. I wouldn't have said the sentence I'm fat, so I can't be queer. That wouldn't have come out like that. But it wasn't until I started following body positivity stuff and seeing Nicolette, or now if I was following it might be my friend Jazzmyne J, and being like, oh, you can be fat and queer in all kinds of ways. And I don't know, that idea of I'm interested in trying to pull apart how much of that is about presentation and style, how much of that is about the internalized fat phobia I had, how much of that is about how concerned I was with trying to apologize for my fatter body as much as possible by trying to fit into something, you know?
Yeah. Well, and Kathy, you went through a version of this too, with sort of transforming how you presented and how you thought about how you presented.
Well, I was trying to think about, there's presentation and there's general body image ideas. And I was trying to think about where queerness goes into how I thought about my body. And for the longest time, maybe my entire childhood, adolescence, even now, for some reason my ideal body type was that of an athlete. I've always felt weak, and I've always wanted to feel strong. Since I was a kid, I've just wanted to be stronger and stronger. And for me, that meant becoming an athlete, because athletes are strong. And so for a very long time, to me, it didn't seem like there was any crossover between queerness and just the want to be strong. And then I remember we had an episode of Nancy where I talked to Cameron Esposito, and she said a woman's value or worth in the society is based on their fuckability. And when she talked about that, I started to think about how there's it's almost like a double-edged sword. As a queer woman, I might not care as much about, how I appear attractive or not to a cisgendered dude,
right,
for example. And so I can present how I want. I'm free to present as masculine as I want, as feminine as I want. It doesn't matter to me. But on the flip side, the media messaging in the world tells me that if I am not fuckable by a cisgendered guy, then I have no worth or value in society. And so I might be able to present very quote-unquote queer, not like a conventionally attractive person.
Sure.
And at the same time, be proud of that, and at the same time still hold a lot of like insecurity because maybe my worth in the world is not quite the same anymore. That's where the two things intersect for me when it comes to queerness and like my body image.
I feel that. I think for me, my fatness and my queerness right now are pretty inextricably tied because of how I came to terms with both of them. And, you know, whatever, bodies go through changes. If my body changes, I don't anticipate this happening, but like if I became thinner or thin, I think I would have to navigate a whole different relationship with my queerness and with my body. Because like part of what gave me permission to understand that I was queer was being like, I'm not filling the idea of like a thin, straight girl. So what am I? You know, if I'm not that, if I'm not in the mold of what like I perceive like an American dude, right, as like wanting, then like what does that give me permission to be? Not that like my queerness is tied up in, you know, whether or not men want me, because it's, you know, it's not, but like discovering that did help me find that. I don't have to care about whether or not I feel fuckable. I can just figure out what feels right for me and then go from there. But it's weird how much it like especially because I'm bi and so like I still do like men, you know? I mean, I don't like men, but I, you know. Yeah. Really, it was just an option opener for me. And it allowed me to stop being like, oh, I need to make myself smaller so that I fit this kind of straight relationship, basically.
Totally.
Who Knows is a podcast created in an effort to pull back the curtain on the human experience. Host Taylor Dankovich has transparent conversations with tons of different people about self-love and mental health in our day-to-day lives. They talk about life, good and bad, and have fun doing it. In past episodes, Who Knows has touched on subjects such as race, religion, friendships, parenthood, gender, marriage, and a lot more. Who Knows is all about learning, growing, having conversations, and opening up to new ideas. Most of all, it's about knowing that not everyone has it all figured out, and we should all embrace the confusion, support the people around us, live a life that we can love, and take care of ourselves because we matter. Definitely a good pod for SAF listeners. Ready to start listening? Season 3 is coming September 3rd, and it's chock full of interviews with creators, innovators, self-starters, and entrepreneurs, including yours truly. So make sure to subscribe to Who Knows wherever you listen to your podcasts and follow them at Who Knows Pod on Instagram and Twitter. Who knows? Maybe it'll be your new fave. I love getting to tell you about our longtime sponsor, Undersummers by Carrie Ray. If you haven't heard, Undersummers are soft and comfy shortlet slip shorts. They will quickly become your go-to thigh-protecting panty for underskirts and dresses year-round. Plus, they come in sizes small to 5X. I wear my Undersummers on days when my HS is acting up and I need underwear that isn't too clingy and is very breathable while also adding a little barrier. Their super soft laces, fabrics, and trims are carefully chosen to make you love your thighs, and their products come in tons of fun colors. Right now, Undersummers has new happy colors in stock: bright green, neon pink, and happy stripes. My 80s workout vibe just got happier. OMG, and you won't believe this, Undersummers now offers leggings too. They're super comfy, cute, and functional all day, every day. Use our new code just for She's All Fat listeners, SAF, for $10 off your purchase of favorite comfy, silky, smooth, breathable, anti-thigh chafing slip shorts. That's code SAF for $10 off on undersummers.com. Care of is a subscription service that delivers vitamins and supplements customized for your specific needs. If you're like me, maybe you need a little boost in the summertime, whether you're looking for energy, better sleep, to maintain stress, or something else. Care of has got you covered. And you don't have to worry about choosing vitamins yourself. Care of has a fun and cute online quiz for that. We answer questions like, do you eat meat? What are your goals? Etc. And in 5 minutes, wazam! You've got a list of personalized, scientifically backed vitamin and supplement recommendations. Then, depending on your plan, you'll get daily vitamin packs and or protein powder sent right to your door, which is so much easier than driving somewhere. And if you're thinking daily packs, what about the environment? Fear not. The packets are now made from compostable plant-based film that meets the same safety standards, so your vitamins are kept fresh and sustainable. I loved taking the Care of quiz because it's a quiz all about me and what I like, and the graphics were cute. And I really enjoyed that Care of is really transparent about, number one, where they get their vitamins and supplements. Number two, what each one can do. And number three, like whether or not there's scientific studies backing each one. For 25% off your first Care of order, go to takecareof.com and enter code SAF. That's takecareof.com and promo code SAF for 25% off.
I mean, I'm curious for you all. I mean, I can only speak for my own experience, but I feel like one of the things that makes it potentially more difficult for queer people to figure this out is that, like, at least for gay men, I find that a real reticence or sort of just being bad at talking about it. And I feel like it almost comes from that same assumption that allows, like, a lot of misogyny to exist with gay men, which is like, oh, we have an othered identity, and so just on that alone, we're accepting people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so then there's no way that we could be misogynistic. There's no way that we could not celebrate somebody else's body. And that sort of attitude prevents you from actually examining how it is absolutely just as present, if not more present, you know, in like gay male culture, for example. And so then it becomes very hard to talk about because there's an assumption that you must be open, you must be accepting.
I feel like a similar vibe for queer women. Obviously, not speaking for all queer women, but in my experience and with the conversations I've had with past partners, everybody that I've ever come into contact with who's a queer woman is very open and accepting of everybody else's body types. But it's almost like we haven't been able to exercise the media messaging about what an attractive woman is supposed to be. And so I feel like almost always privately, we're very hard on ourselves, but very open to how anybody else looks.
Interesting. Like, I didn't realize this till just now, but I would say like most of my friends in the like fat influencer world are queer, actually, who are women. Most of the friends, like the closer friends that I've made, like Corissa, Fat Girl Flo, and Jazzmyne J, and like Nicolette, they're all queer, which is like interesting. I hadn't really clocked that before. Okay, I also want to touch on the idea of like labels in the queer community that are about like body type for gay men. I know there's like bears, right?
Right.
Or, like, I'm not as familiar with this. And those like don't really exist in straight world. So why do you guys think that these like labels for different kinds of queer bodies have become useful, or at least have happened? And do you think that for you, thinking about those labels like helps or hurts your sense of self when you think about queerness in your body?
Well, this is like queer theory. And
I know, it's hard.
I'm not a queer theorist, but I do think that labels can be helpful for somebody who might not fit into their surrounding, because it gives you an identity when you're not allowed to take the one that you think either you belong in or you just don't think you belong in a certain identity. So I think labels can be really, really powerful for folks who really claim those labels, like for the folks who identify as butch, for the folks that identify as femme, for the ones that identify, as leather daddies, maybe. Like for some people, it can be really helpful. For other people, it's not helpful because they just don't feel like any one label can really describe everything. I think I tend to fall somewhere in between. Sometimes a label is helpful, especially when you need like a shorthand to describe yourself. Sometimes it's easier just to be more vague with a certain label. Like I like using queer because it's easier for me to just identify as part of the community and not have to go into any specifics. As for like why these labels tend to encompass like just how we physically look, I don't really know. Do you have any ideas about that?
Well, I think some of them come out of like just like straight up cruising culture, you know, like looking for, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
That's fair.
And then I think, well, I mean, to answer the other part of the question, like I like labels when they help you feel a part of something.
Yeah.
Or sort of exist in the positive space of like being part of a community. And then I think I'm sort of against labels when they're used for gatekeeping.
Yeah.
You know, like you're not this enough, you're not that enough.
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
you don't really belong to X, Y, or Z. And I guess just to speak to like the gay male terms and phraseologies, like I'm all for like what I understand of like bear culture because it exists in that positive realm of like naming something and saying, I like this, or like I'm part of this, or I am attracted to this thing that might have otherwise been coded in sort of like very, you know, Eurocentric thin standards as not attractive. So, you know, again, it's that thing of like, I love labels when they help us move towards like people feeling like they belong to something and feel accepted by something.
I love that. Okay, I have a very silly question. Or it's like silly answers are acceptable for this.
Cool.
Okay. Do any parts of your body feel queer to you? Like if you're naked in a room, like without clothes, without presentation, without hair even. Like
not even hair?
Well, because hair is presentation, I feel like. Hair is styling.
Yes.
I mean, and that we can argue that point. But like say you're building yourself as a sim, right? And like you're in the stage where you're like choosing the different parts of your body, okay? Say you're like in a sim builder for your body. Which parts of your body feel located in queerness, if any? Like like is there anything that occurs to you as like, yes, this feels like queer me?
Well, according to the L word, I'm pretty sure it's my middle and ring finger.
Why those fingers
I
specifically?
think it was the L word. Oh my God, am I getting that wrong? If one is longer than the other or something like that, then you're queer, and if it's not, then you're not.
Oh, I remember that. I remember reading that in like 17 magazine or something when I was little.
Yeah, and then if they're about the same, then like you're bi.
That's so funny. Well, mine don't fit that.
Mine neither. So I don't remember.
Oh my God, I love that.
Maybe it's ring. I think it's ring and index finger, actually.
That's funny.
I don't remember. I don't even know if it's the L word. I don't know, but that's what I thought of.
Oddly, the first thing that came to mind for me is the weenus, which is the skin on your elbow that allows you to bend the elbow.
Yes.
And the reason I think the weenus is queer is because the rest of society might look at that skin and be like, it's weird, it's different, why is it there?
Oh my God.
Actually, you can't bend that shit without the weenus.
Wow,
like the
so
weenus
true.
is so important.
It's so true.
For function, for style, for all things in life. And what is more queer than something that on its face, cis hetero culture might be like, why do we need that?
Oh my
and
God.
then here's the weenus. Like,
here's the weenus.
We stand a multi-purpose icon, you know?
Yeah. Why is it called the weenus?
I
have no idea.
I would love to find out.
Wow.
It was definitely a gay person that invented that word. He was like, it would be funny.
Oh my God. Do you hear that, everyone? Your weenuses are gay. You got a gay weenus.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I love that. I feel like
Wait, what about you? What part of your body is queer?
I feel like my clavicle is queer. I don't know why. I just feel like, I started showing it off a lot more when it's tied to that thing of like accepting myself, where I'm like, oh, like Yes, I feel very chest forward when I sink into my queerness for some reason. And also my fingers. I don't know. I feel like I always like wished I had long, elegant fingers. Because my mom has long, elegant fingers, and so does my sister, and so does my best friend. And I always like, when I am imagining the version of myself that's like in a Jane Austen novel and like plays piano and like, you know, whatever is modest and like entrancing because I read poetry or whatever. It's like I have very long fingers in that and just like, you know, so delicately turn pages. And my fingers are not like that. They're like short and chubby, have like baby hands. And I just feel like, I don't know. Now I for some reason feel just like, okay, my hands are the things I use to do stuff, and they're good. And they feel queer to me. I don't know. Like I said, it's silly. It doesn't have any particular, doesn't mean very much. I don't know. Also, maybe my calves. I feel like my calves are queer. Maybe because they have like, now I let my hair grow on my legs, so they feel very queer. You know?
Yeah. Fuck those gender norms, whatever they are.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, anything that's like not, maybe my stomach too, anything that's not me like sucking in, you know, like feels more queer. Anything that's more like, I'm just standing here or whatever, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Can we talk about queer and different kinds of bodies, like representation in media? Like, have you guys seen queer bodies or fat bodies or you know, medium-sized bodies that you feel like represent you, and like what made you feel seen about those or not?
So a recent example for me, which I was really excited to see, was Nico Santos in Crazy Rich Asians.
Yes.
He played sort of like the gay cousin who's fabulous, and
he is fabulous.
Was a scene stealer, and also like had a kind of body that I recognize, that I like have not seen as many gay men portrayed as. And so I was excited to see that. I think it is also one of those complicated things where, like, if you have multiple identities that you're sort of on the watch for in media, it's like, oh, they're really delivering on this one level, but not on this level. You know, so it's
that's
like,
true.
So for that Nico Santos role, I was like so excited to see like a queer Asian person who wasn't like hyper thin or hyper muscular represented. And then also was like, but why can't he have his own movie? Why does he only appear to like move along this heterosexual relationship? But you know, still, I will take it. I was so excited to see him in that movie have that moment.
He was great.
He was lovely.
Yeah. I don't know that I've seen myself in the media yet. I feel like right now, queer women are still presented as very feminine and very, I guess, just like very passing. That for a very long time in the media has been just the way that queer women are depicted on the screen. And I want to say that's probably because they're mostly played by straight women.
Yeah.
And if they're not that, then they're usually hyper masculine. It's like these two boxes you have to fit into. There's not as much of a spectrum like you see in real life. Like in real life, most of my friends fall in the middle. I don't have as many friends who are like hyper feminine or hyper masculine. And I fall in the middle too. And I don't think I see that as much, or I can't really think of as, I mean, Asia Kate Dillon is great, but they identify as non-binary. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, it's also, I think we should say, like, the representation of, let's say, butch women or, like, high femmes are often set up in opposition to each other.
Yes.
So, like, a character who is femme very rarely gets to just exist as femme and not have their queerness, like, questioned or in this way that, like, there's usually a joke about, oh, lipstick lesbian, or you're so, like, it's made a narrative point. Like, a femme woman can't just be femme and be queer and not have that questioned in some way.
Yeah.
And then I think on the opposite side of the spectrum, usually if there's a butch woman in something, like, their butchness is made a butt of a joke or that sort of thing.
And the majority of the representation for queer women on screen anyways is almost always still through the lens of a cisgendered guy. It's always still it's almost like a pared down version of what you would see in lesbian porn.
Yeah.
Made for a straight guy.
Yeah.
It's still two very straight passing women who are into each other. And like, I wish we would break out of that. Obviously, that's not the only thing that's out there now. There, like outside of mainstream entertainment, there's more and more stuff coming up in YouTube, web series, that sort of thing. But if we're talking about like mainstream entertainment, it's still mostly that.
Yeah. A lot of times, fatness on women is portrayed as like desexualized or like from a male's point of view,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
like it's desexualized or it's aggressive, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's like, I don't see a lot of, especially like, I don't think a lot of bi characters are on screen, except if it's like, you know, honestly, the most bi characters are on kind of like freeform shows.
Yep.
You know? And then I'm like, well, I'm not a warlock either.
Yeah.
So like, you know?
Yeah, totally.
But what about that warlock representation, though? They're really getting it.
Oh my God, so good.
Yeah.
So good.
I do want to shout out the character of Fran on Shrill.
Yes.
Because, I mean, that actress is great. Her storylines were lovely, and she like stole a lot of the scenes and everything. But it is one of those things where it's like you see something like that, a performance like that, and the writing for that part, and you're like, oh, it could be so easy for people to just like put the representation in there and have it feel authentic and have it make your show better. Like, you don't realize how insidious the tropes are until you see the opposite of that and are like, oh, you could just be doing this.
I just want Samantha Irby to have her own show to write, honestly, and like write about Black queer women would be incredible. Like Black queer fat women. Okay, so do you guys have any things to bring up or questions that I didn't ask or things you want to touch on the topic of queer bodies? What is a queer body?
I mean, one thing I would like to shout out is like, I think that writers and activists like Alok Fade Menon and Jacob Tobia are like really leading this discussion about fabulousness and queerness. And this idea that like we've sort of landed on this thing when we talk about queer people in media, where it's like we will celebrate queer people and body positivity if they are fabulous. If they're out there and they're confident and they like have it all together and they're like serving looks and all that sort of energy.
Yeah.
But that's not the same as showing up for queer people and queer bodies when, you know, we're not in those moments.
Yes.
And so I would point people to their work to have a more nuanced discussion about like what it means to really be an ally to different types of queer bodies and different types of queer presentation.
That's great.
Yeah, I love that.
I think I just want to offer a blessing to the folks out there that feel like however their body looks and however they present, the folks that don't feel queer enough no matter what they look like. Because I hear a lot from listeners of our show that want to know, like, I am part of this community, but I don't know how to signal that I am. And almost every time I end up responding with, you're fine the way you are. It's the people that are making you not feel queer enough that's the issue. And so just a blessing for everybody out there that's like that, that's feeling that way, I guess.
I love that. Okay, we are going to wrap up this incredible conversation. Thank you all so much for doing this intro to our queer bodies discussion. There's so many different parts of this that I want to chase after now in further episodes. But thank you both. And do you have anything that you want to point the family to, like, of your own work? I mean, obviously, we're going to push Nancy. We want everyone to listen to Nancy if they're not already. But is there anything else that you both love as resources or something, or your own outside work you want to point people to before we say goodbye?
Listen to the podcast. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter if you want to. What else? Anything else?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Kathy's dog has a great Instagram account.
Oh my God.
Oh, yeah. Bowie dog underscore because Bowie dog is taken.
Oh my God. Following immediately. Okay, link to the show.
Yeah. She's great.
Thank you both so much for coming on the show. I'm so glad that we're our friends and I value you guys a lot. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye. And that's our show. She's All Fat was created by me, Sophie Carter-Kahn, and the iconic April K. Quio, who is on a break this season. You know what she said to me the other day, though, was...
Shout out to Peppa Pig, the body positive icon.
So many good Peppa Pig memes this week.
Queen.
Okay.
We are an independent production. If you'd like to support the work we do, you can join our Patreon by visiting patreon.com/she'sallfatpod. When you pledge to be a supporter, you'll get all sorts of goodies and extra content. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to the stuff we mentioned today, and don't forget to send us your questions via email or voice recording to fyi@she'sallfatpod.com. Please make sure to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It's super important in making sure people find the show. If you leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, we'll give you a shout out on the pod next week. Our theme music was composed and produced by Carolyn Pennypacker Riggs. Our website was designed by Jesse Fish, and our logo is by Britt Scott. This episode was co-produced and edited by Maria Ortel. Our junior producer is Lynn Barbera. Our lovely, amazing new interns are Freya Solander and Yeli Cruz. I am our host and co-producer. Our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter handles are @She'sAllFatPod. You can find the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Bye.
And then I had a wrap with turkey and egg whites and Swiss cheese and avocado and an iced coffee.
What's the difference, Tobin, between a burrito and a wrap?
Beans.
Is it just the health benefits?
It's beans.
I don't know.
Oh,
maybe,
beans.
yeah.
Beans. Okay, then I did not have a burrito. I had a wrap.